Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Banking Show. Hitachi Payments Services, a 100% subsidiary of Hitachi Limited, has around 28% market share of ATMs deployed in India. Hitachi Payments has also received Reserve Bank of India's in-principle approval to operate as a payments aggregator, entities that processes payments for merchants. Rustom Irani, Managing Director at Hitachi Payment Services, is with us today to talk about the evolving dynamics of digital payments vis-a-vis cash transaction. Mr. Irani, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Manojit. Thank you for having me.
The number of ATMs have not grown in the last 3 years from the pre-pandemic levels and now. Now that the pandemic is behind us, are you seeing increased demand from banks for ATM installations?
It's actually a good question to ponder upon, Manojit. If you look at pre-pandemic and post that, yes, the number of ATMs has not increased much, while it has increased by, I believe, over 10,000. The reasons are many. One, of course, is the fact that during and post the pandemic, there has been a lot of focus on digital, and that has resulted in some amount of slowdown in terms of ATM deployment. Having said that, I think that some of what we see as a potential slowdown in number of ATMs being deployed is also due to the fact that there has been a consolidation of some of the PSU banks, number one. Number two, if you look at the growth, there is a larger number of ATMs being deployed by white label ATM operators, primarily in the Suru area, as we call it, the semi-urban and rural areas, which, by the way, is also where ATMs are most needed, given that in the rural areas particularly, financial inclusion is always a challenge. So to answer that question, in a nutshell, yes, the number of ATM, which we've seen a growth, has slowed down. But in terms of where it is being now deployed, I would think that in the Suru areas, which is where it is now being targeted, that's a very good thing.
But now that pandemic is behind us, do you think increasing demand from banks, or they are still not very keen to deploy ATMs?
The way we look at it, Manojit, is that there's definitely a big need for financial inclusion. And when we talk about ATMs, that's probably the easiest or the ones which people most identify with in terms of being able to get certain financial services, starting with the very basic cash withdrawals which people need. What we also see today is that there are more and more cash recycling machines, which means that you can deposit cash as well as withdraw it. And what we believe is happening now is that banks are looking at the CRMs as potentially a replacement for the CDs, as we call it, the cash dispensers, broadly categorized under ATMs. We believe that banks have, along with certain deployment initiatives in terms of branches, definitely a need to deploy these ATMs, CRMs possibly. And this we also understand will see an uptick. I would not be able to tell you what numbers, but I can definitely tell you that white label ATM operators in India would be quite keen to deploy these. And again, like I said, particularly in the semi-urban and rural areas.
So there is a shift you see from deploying CRMs rather than a typical cash dispensation machines. Right now, there are about 260,000 ATMs and CRMs in the country. Out of which, how much would be the CRMs? Do you have any idea?
My sense would be CRMs are closer to 60,000 as of now. And we expect that number to increase quite a bit. Typically, what happens is, one is, of course, that there are new branches being opened or new ATMs being deployed in many of these rural or even in the metro and some other metro areas. But we also see that there is a refreshment of the existing hardware, which are CDs. And we are seeing a shift towards replacing CDs with CRMs. Definitely an advantage over there, because if we look at what happens in a typical bank branch, early in the morning, there is quite a bit of deposit happening at the teller counters, which keeps them very busy, and there are queues. The CRM just eliminates that. It becomes another device which you put in the main branch, and customers just go there, deposit the money, leaving the tellers open for many more value-add tasks. So we see branches now becoming potentially for banks a place where you could service a customer other than only for their cash needs. And that essentially is a shift in banking where you are able to upsell certain financial services, which could be fixed deposits, as simple as that, or it could be other instruments for investment, life insurance, and so on. So there are a lot of different cross sell which can happen now in branches with such a replacement of CDs with CRMs.
But there is a clear emphasis on digitization in the country. Do you see ATMs are still viable business model going ahead?
See, we believe that people will require to hold cash. In fact, in my view, uh, uh, cash is going to be around for a very long time, primarily because people want to insulate themselves from glitches in technology, or there are so many areas where digital transactions may not work due to some infrastructure which is not yet reached there, or due to fluctuations in power, or in terms of data signal and so on. We believe also that when we go to the semi-urban, rural, and I keep speaking about semi-urban and rural because that's potentially where financial inclusion is or needs a boost. People are most comfortable with cash over there. They need cash to give to their resellers, they give to their vendors. So it's a big requirement. We've also seen similarly cash in circulation, which has gone up from 16 plus trillion pre-demonetization to, I believe, 31 plus trillion now. And that does indicate the comfort that we have with cash. Now, digitization at the same time has picked up very much so after, particularly after or during the pandemic, because people were at home, they wanted to use facilities of home delivery. E-commerce therefore took off in a very big way. There was a lot of encouragement from the government as well, rightly so. And we've seen this very, very big uptick, therefore, in digital transactions. What we have also seen at the same time is the need for cash has not gone down. And yes, there has been some impact on the number of cash withdrawals. But for banks, I would think that this is a necessity. It's less about them making money. It's more about retaining their customer base, giving them the facilities in terms of both digital and cash. And that's a very big driver because banks issue debit cards and credit cards, of course, and a need for an individual to be able to access a 24 into 7 kind of a banking environment where certain basic needs, which are cash withdrawals as well as deposits, is very much so. So we do not see reduction in this need. Will banks therefore go ahead and deploy more ATMs is something that we would need to see. I can say that there is deployment of ATMs happening, which has increased the total number deployed to 260,000, around that number. And that deployment has met with similar success in terms of number of transactions taking place. In terms of viability of ATM deployment, I think it's what we understand as a customer service. And therefore, a bank would want to invest in that primarily because you're servicing your customer. I mean, it may not be an immediate revenue driver, but without that, you also have a challenge in terms of acquiring customers.
Now, also interesting development is that Hitachi Payments has also received in principle approval from RBI to be a payment aggregator. So you are on one hand you are handling cash, on the other hand you are also going for digitization. Which is your best bet?
We believe that there's a lot of synergy between the two, Manojit. What we have seen is digital, as we call it, digitization of financial transactions in the country has always been talked about. But post demonetization, initially there was a big flip, which was also because cash was not available, and there was a large deployment of point of sales terminals, the first step in terms of digital transaction. What we also saw was that UPI started taking off around that time, and that's one of India's big success stories. Then the pandemic hit us, and that's where e-commerce or home delivery of whatever you wanted became a very big thing. Contactless delivery, as we call it, contactless transactions as we know it. So digitization, in that sense, took a big had a big boost. What Hitachi has always done is we've looked at both our cash and digital businesses as synergistic. We believe that customers will continue to want a choice of cash or digital. We see that in the last few years, and I mentioned that post demonetization, and even more so during and after the pandemic, there has been a big leaning towards digital transactions. And at the same time, we also believe that the payment aggregator license that you spoke of is one of the things that Hitachi has looked at to further improve its services to its customers. So we do see a lot of synergies. I wouldn't say that we would prefer one over the other, while of course digital transactions are, as we speak, the favorite word that everybody uses. For us, both these businesses have a lot of value.
Now that you have received the in-principle authorization for payment aggregator, what is the process now and how long will it take to get the final approval?
The payment aggregator license is, of course, RBI license, which entails all applicants to be very thorough in their processes and their systems, be very clear about how certain aspects of merchant onboarding and so on will be taken care of. So that was the first process which we completed. After getting the in-principle approval, there is a set of audit and other requirements which is required to be fulfilled by the regulator, which is a process we are going through. And we expect to complete that very shortly, post which we will be able to offer these services to our customers.
So the final approval would take about how much time you think?
I would say it's dependent on an organization, Manojit, but we believe we will complete our end of the process before the end of May. Then, of course, there are a number of other licenses which are or other actions which the RBI or activities the RBI undergoes, and that may take more time. So we will complete our end of it by May.
How long will it take to break even the PA business?
So, Manojit, let me put it this way. Hitachi Payments has built platforms for its services over a large period of time since we have been in business. For us, there is a big opportunity, of course, in the e-commerce side or e-commerce segment of digital payments. This big opportunity, which we are speaking about, is potentially where we offer to our customers the ability to do an end-to or provide an end-to-end service. For example, when I say our customers, it could be a bank, it could be fintech service providers, where we have the entire end-to-end, starting from onboarding a merchant, the eKYC process, as we call it, providing the rails, the technology to run the payment platform, which includes all forms of payments, debit cards, credit cards, wallets, net banking, QR codes, UPI, the entire gamut of range of these payment options. To, of course, the management of or settlement, the reconciliation and settlement of the entire payment transaction process. We provide that end-to-end experience. In terms of break-even, we believe that our investment in this technology is for a long term. I would therefore say that we look at it more in terms of both a strategic as well as an investment for our customers. Again, because of the synergies we achieve in both our cash and digital businesses, the break even is typically a very short period of time. And therefore, we should be clear of break even, as we call it, in a very short period of time compared to many others, simply because we already have the platforms on which these services are provided.
Thank you so much for speaking to Business Standard. It was a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Irani.
Manojit, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
I am the blue of the limitless sky. I am the inspiration that led success soar high. I will achieve, I will fly high. I am the I in SBI.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.